Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the absolute mechanics of a massive decade-long intelligence heist. We are dissecting the sheer complex machinery of modern espionage. Imagine a fortress so heavily guarded, so deeply fortified, that the entire world essentially considered it impossible to breach. And yet, through 10 years of painstakingly slow infiltration, using everything from hacked street cameras and satellite webs to incredibly dangerous on-the-ground human spies, it was compromised. We're going to break down exactly how this unprecedented intelligence gathering operation evolved, step by step, sticking strictly to the data and reports from our source material.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. The impregnable fortress. 2. The strategy shift. 3. Human infiltration and risks. 4. Eyes in the sky. 5. The AI pattern. And finally, 6. The final strike. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The impregnable fortress, breaching Pasteur Street. So, the ultimate target here was the 30-acre Pasteur Street compound in Tehran, which is sometimes called the Motahari complex. This place is the absolute center of power. It houses the supreme leader's residence, the Iranian president's office, and over 50 top government offices. We are not just talking about a secure building. This was a sprawling, ultra-secure city within a city. To really grasp the scale of this place, it all comes down to a single number, 5. Because the real compound isn't just what you can see on the surface. Deep underground, there's a bunker tied into a massive 5-kilometer tunnel network stretching beneath Tehran. To put that physical depth into perspective, it literally took 5 full minutes of just riding an elevator straight down to even reach the bunker. And above ground, the security was just as formidable. The compound was protected by 3 overlapping, incredibly dense layers of defense. Out at 500 meters, you had the elite Vali AMR guards. At 350 meters, a dense secondary ring. And right at the individual buildings, you had rapid reaction units like the Ansar al-Mahdi. Factor in the rotating cameras, frequency detectors, mobile jammers, and actual iron anti-drone nets, and a direct conventional assault was functionally impossible. Section 2. The strategy shift from facilities to leadership. For a really long time, the core strategy of Israeli intelligence was focused heavily on just disrupting nuclear facilities. But eventually, they realized something crucial. As long as the core leadership remained completely intact, those facilities would just get rebuilt in new secret locations. This whole 10-year escalation actually kicked off with an inciting incident in January 2018, the Shoravad document heist. Mossad operatives went in with blowtorches, cracked iron safes, and extracted half a ton of secret nuclear documents. And those documents were a massive reality check. They exposed underground locations that intelligence agencies didn't even know existed. This triggered a total sweeping strategy shift. They moved away from just targeting remote facilities and started targeting the leadership itself. It set off a chain reaction, a huge satellite race in 2023, entering execution mode in October of that year, all culminating in the final strike in February 2026. Section 3. Human infiltration and risks, digging through the dirt. To get to that final phase, you need on-the-ground intel. You simply cannot hack a physical fortress from a keyboard thousands of miles away without first mapping it from the inside out. So, Israeli intelligence, working closely with local dissidents, planted assets directly inside that impenetrable inner circle. The embedded everyday workers, maintenance staff, electricians, plumbers. These operatives were painstakingly gathering physical intelligence in the grittiest ways possible, like literally analyzing the daily waste and garbage coming out of the compound or tracking raw food deliveries. And we really have to emphasize the personal stakes here. These human assets operated under constant, extreme risk. Getting discovered by the compound's intense security apparatus meant absolute, immediate execution. The level of granularity they achieved is honestly shocking. An ex-CIA official pointed out a crazy detail. They knew exactly what food the compound was ordering, absolutely live. Just think about that for a second. By tracking something as mundane as daily lunch orders, operatives could figure out exactly how many people were inside, who was visiting, and what their daily schedules looked like. It's an overwhelming, terrifying depth of surveillance, and it was achieved entirely by people taking on immense personal risk. Section 4. Eyes in the sky, the technological web. But human intelligence was only half the equation. They had to pivot from those micro, ground-level risks to massive, overhead surveillance. This operation demanded a really stark contrast in methods. On one hand, you've got human spies facing unimaginable physical vulnerability on the ground. But on the other hand, you have the cold, sweeping reach of digital tracking. While ground operatives were literally sifting through physical garbage, a sprawling technological web was being cast over the compound from above. This overhead approach brought zero physical risk to the operators, but it relied on incredibly high cyber complexity. So how do you build that web? Well, they started by targeting the streets of Tehran. Thousands of Tandy and Hikvision security cameras were installed all over the city to monitor traffic and public spaces. But they had a major flaw: unpatched remote code execution bugs. Israel's Unit 8200 exploited these specific vulnerabilities, essentially turning Iran's own surveillance network entirely against itself. They routed a real-time feed of traffic and street cameras straight back to their own intelligence hubs. And then they brought in eyes from space. The KH-11 Keynote satellite was tracking individual car antennas from 600 kilometers up. But the real game-changer was the Orion satellite. This highly advanced piece of tech actually had the capability to intercept walkie-talkie orders and secure radio signals straight from orbit. All of that intercepted data was then beamed down to Pine Gap, which is a highly classified CIA military location out in the Australian desert, just to be processed. Now, you might be wondering, didn't the targets know they were being watched? Oh, they absolutely did. It became a super tense cat-and-mouse game. Iran implemented heavy countermeasures. They banned all electronic gadgets for staff. They even went as far as blindfolding visitors like Supreme National Security Council Secretary Ali Larijani when taking them down to the bunker. But most importantly, they wired the entire compound with fiber optic cables. Because data in those cables travels as light pulses instead of radio waves, it was completely invisible to the Orion satellite looking down from space. Section 5. The AI pattern. Predicting the unpredictable. So now you have petabytes of data pouring in from satellites, hacked street cameras, and ground assets, all while active countermeasures are trying to block you. Intelligence agencies desperately needed a way to make sense of the noise. Human analysts couldn't possibly sit there and manually process millions of hours of raw footage and intercepted calls. It's just too much. Instead, they used private AI systems like Palantir's Maven. This software tracked and correlated everything. It mapped out exactly which driver was on shift and how the convoys were forming. Incredibly, it even analyzed individual body posture and walking styles just to differentiate the actual targets from their body doubles. The end result? A highly predictable pattern of life. The AI achieved a staggering 98.7% predictive accuracy within 90 minutes. It essentially knew exactly where these targets would be before the targets themselves even knew. Section 6, the final strike, orchestrating the impossible. Fast forward to February 2026. A totally crucial piece of ground intel comes in, confirming a high-level morning meeting was happening above ground, totally outside the safety of that subterranean bunker. It was go time. But before a single jet could arrive, they had to systematically blind the entire fortress through a massive, multi-layered cyber and electronic attack. Step 1. Malware that had been hidden deep in the supply chain of Iran's S-300 air defense networks, just lying dormant for years, was suddenly activated, totally blanking out their radar screens. Step 2. U.S. Navy EA-8G aircraft flooded the local airspace with intense electromagnetic jamming. Step 3. Drones that had been secretly smuggled into Iran months prior were activated from the inside to physically sabotage whatever air defense batteries were left. In mere seconds, the ultimate fortress was completely blind and defenseless. That totally cleared airspace paved the way for a striking figure. 30 hypersonic Blue Sparrow missiles were dropped simultaneously. They actually exited the atmosphere, positioned themselves at a precise 90-degree angle, and struck that exact pinpointed meeting room at hypersonic speed. The strike wiped out almost the entire top leadership gathering, but the aftermath left us with some incredible character intrigue, which is perfectly captured by the story of Quds Force General Ismail Khani. He survived, and not only did he survive this time, but he had miraculously survived similar targeted strikes 9 times before. As you can imagine, his survival immediately sparked deep, intense suspicions and internal investigations within Iranian agencies regarding his potential involvement. It laid bare the severe paranoia that inherently rips through a system after an intelligence breach of this magnitude. Yet, the absolute most chilling detail of this entire operation happened just 12 minutes after the strike. There was a simple, everyday religious app called Bade Sabah, installed by millions of Iranian civilians just to check their daily prayer times. It was hacked. The app rapidly requested location access and suddenly started pushing mass notifications to the general public, announcing that help had arrived and urging the military to surrender. The compromise of civilian data was absolute. We have just seen how 10 years of analyzing trash, exploiting street cameras, and feeding AI with body posture data culminated in a literal geopolitical earthquake. But if a simple, everyday religious app on a civilian smartphone can be effortlessly weaponized to track and message an entire nation during a military strike, where does modern intelligence gathering actually end? It's a question that completely redefines the boundaries of privacy and security in our modern age. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.